$1.5 trillion for the army. United States President Donald Trump announced plans to increase United States military spending to a record high for more than 70 years, to build the army of his dreams, as he put it, and to ensure the country's security from all enemies. Trump called on the United States Congress to increase the military budget by 50 up to $1.5 trillion starting this October. This is simply a historic record. Trump insists that he wants to build not only the Iron Dome missile defense system, but also an Iron Fleet, Iron Air Force, and so on. This year, the United States defense budget is just over $900 billion, but where to find another $600 billion is a question for Trump. There is an answer. He says we'll take the money from tariffs against those countries that robbed America in the past. At the same time, Trump declares that the United States will run Venezuela for many years. He says, "Don't think that we just came there and that's it." No, he directly said the United States has controlled Venezuela for years and is prepared to take Greenland by force. At the same time, French President Emmanuel Macron stated that the United States is turning away from Europe and that we need to be ready for the possibility that yesterday's ally and partner could suddenly become an opponent. What is Donald Trump planning? Let's discuss this together. My name is Alexei Pecci. Let's talk about this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave any comment under this episode, and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pecci News. The link to it is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, United States President Donald Trump announced plans to increase United States military spending to a record high for more than 70 years, to build the dream army that will be able to ensure the security of the United States from all enemies on the planet. In 2027, the Pentagon's budget should increase to $1.5 trillion, Donald Trump wrote on the social network Truth Social. Let me remind you that the fiscal year in the United States begins in October of this year, the 26th. That's $901 billion compared to this year. United States military spending, already the world's highest, will rise by over 1.5 times. According to Trump, he made this decision after long and difficult negotiations with senators, congressmen, and ministers. And the new money for the military will be provided by tariffs imposed against countries that, as he put it, used to rob America. Here's some historical context. The last time the United States increased its military budget by more than 50% was in 1951 during the Korean War, when the States sent hundreds of thousands of troops to counter the forces of Kim Il-sung, who was supported by China and the Soviet Union. So, at that time, the Korean War was clear. More spending was needed, and that was the last time the United States increased the military department's budget by 50%. Even during the time of Ronald Reagan, at the peak of the Cold War, when the United States launched the Star Wars program and deployed nuclear missiles in Europe, the increase in the military budget was not as rapid. For example, in 1981, Reagan increased it by 25%, and in 1982 by another 20%, but never by 50%. Hundreds of billions of dollars in new funding, all going to the Pentagon, are needed to finance Donald Trump's defense programs, including the Golden Dome missile defense system and the Golden Fleet Naval Modernization Project. So, when Trump said a couple of months ago that he didn't like the American Navy, saying that some of the ships were ugly, he wasn't joking. He really is ready to invest money in creating the Golden Fleet. By the way, the Golden Dome project is estimated at $175 billion. And the Golden Fleet project involves building 25 new Trump-class warships, which will be equipped with lasers, hypersonic missiles, and will be capable of carrying nuclear weapons. And yes, don't laugh, but Trump decided that there will be Trump-class warships. For Trump's plan to be implemented, it will require approval from Congress, where the Republicans hold only a slight majority. Many of them, however, are ready to support Trump's idea, although the scale of additional military spending raises doubts. Where else can you find another $600 billion? Currently, the United States spends 3.5% of gross domestic product on defense. And as Don Bacon, a member of the House of Representatives from Nebraska, stated, "We need at least 4% of gross domestic product." He says, "At the very least, we need to increase defense spending by another 0.5%. Here's a quote. "This is what's needed to rebuild our Navy, our Air Force, our intercontinental ballistic missiles, our bombers, and to take care of our soldiers." According to him, many Republicans support a long-term increase in the military budget that will affect more than 1 year. And here, a nonpartisan think tank in America, the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, notes that Trump's plans will require $5 trillion by 2035. At the same time, tariffs will by no means cover all of these expenses. In the current fiscal year, they brought in $288 billion to the budget, which is just over half the amount that Donald Trump needs. But the question here is different. What exactly is Trump planning? I think Trump has something in mind. In an interview with the New York Times, the United States president stated that America could control Venezuela for many years. The United States president continued, noting that the United States seeks to restore Venezuela in a way that is very beneficial for itself. Quote, "We will use the oil and we will take it. We are lowering oil prices and we will give money to Venezuela, which it desperately needs." Trump added that his administration is in constant contact with the acting president of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, who previously served as vice president, noting that United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in regular communication with her. And by the way, friends, here I would recommend you watch my previous episode in which I revealed the story about Delcy Rodriguez and her brother Jorge Rodriguez. In fact, while Moduro's people were in power, they were conducting behind-the-scenes negotiations with the Americans and essentially betrayed Nicolás Maduro, helping the Americans capture the Venezuelan president. And now the Rodriguez family clan has taken power into their own hands, not without the help of the Americans. But let's get back to Donald Trump's interview with the New York Times. So, it took place against the backdrop of growing questions about what United States control over the South American country will look like after the capture and subsequent indictment of the former leader of the country, Nicolás Maduro. Trump is increasingly talking about the role of oil in the United States takeover of the country, announcing earlier this week that Venezuela will be refining between 30 and 50 million barrels of oil. But it seems that Trump has decided to, let's say carefully, annex this country in a hybrid way, meaning there is no outright annexation, no occupation. But in fact, there are American appointees there who work directly with them. In addition, questions arise about what the actions of the United States in Venezuela mean for other Latin American countries. Trump caused confusion on Sunday when he told reporters that a United States operation in Colombia sounds pretty good and that Cuba is about to fall. For example, after the United States operation in Venezuela, President of Colombia Petro and Trump exchanged such verbal jabs, but later Trump said it was an honor for him to speak with the Colombian president. He said that the president of Colombia called him himself, and I quote, "I appreciated his call and tone, and I look forward to meeting him in the near future." So Trump will likely try to strike a deal with Colombia. At the same time, French President Emmanuel Macron criticized the Trump administration for ignoring the rules-based global order. After the overthrow of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and the renewed threats to annex Greenland, Macron directly stated that the United States is distancing itself from its allies. Quote, "The United States. It is an established power that is gradually distancing itself from some of its allies and freeing itself from international rules that it itself used to promote." Macron said Trump wants to split the world into spheres of influence, with the United States controlling the Western Hemisphere under the so-called Monroe Doctrine. However, Macron also positively assessed Trump's diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine. Here is another quote. "We are developing in a world of great powers, where there is a real temptation to divide the world. What has happened in the last few months, and sometimes in the last few days, does not diminish this assessment." But then Macron still made a statement, quote, "Every day people wonder if Greenland will be taken over or if Canada will face the threat of becoming the 51st state of the United States. And, against the backdrop of the Americans increasing their military budget, it looks more and more realistic." The president of France did not mention Venezuela specifically, but the situation in Caracas and in Greenland are the main problems for Paris, which helps to develop a European response to Trump's threats against the self-governing Danish territory. Macron stated that Europe must respond by rejecting what he called a new colonialism and by further investing in Europe's strategic autonomy. Let me remind you, I've discussed this for a while. The French president has been preaching for years that Europe should reduce its dependence on both the United States and China equally, but this recent call risks sounding unconvincing to all other European partners who are concerned about Macron's weakness within France itself. Nevertheless, Macron stated that Europe needs to protect its borders through trade agreements that include stricter protective provisions, similar to those contained in the agreements that Trump makes with the parties he considers adversaries. But it is still worth adding that, of course, Europe should be prepared for different scenarios, but I think Trump's goal is not Europe. The day before, Trump openly criticized NATO, but for the first time publicly stated that the United States would never leave the alliance. And he immediately added that Russia and China fear NATO precisely because of America's presence there, and that's how it should remain. Therefore, it seems more like Trump has decided to speed up the arms race, in which neither China nor Russia is destined to win, just like it was with the Soviet Union. It seems to me that Donald Trump is trying to do exactly the same thing now with the Russians and the Chinese. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like if you found this episode interesting and informative. You can support the work of this YouTube channel financially through any donation site using the QR code on your screen or through the links. In the description of this video it says support the channel Alexi Peachy. Choose any format that is convenient for you. Thank you for any support. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye everyone.